Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can simplify these expressions once given some other terms that are in form of trigonometric functions. So you can pause this video and look at the problems, and then let's get started. So number 3 says that if t is equal to tan of theta, then the first part of number 3 is saying then simplify 1 plus t squared. So again, the same approach as before, just substituting in this expression for t, and then see how we proceed to simplify that, which is 1 plus tan squared of theta. But again, if I take you back in the identities, we have sine squared of theta plus cos squared of theta equals 1. And so if we divide throughout by cos squared, this will be tan squared of theta plus 1 is equal to 1 over cos, which is sec squared of theta. And so that means we can make use of this identity and just plug in wherever we see 1 over tan squared. So thereby having 1 plus tan squared theta being equal to square root of sec squared theta, and the square will go with the square root, and so this means that 1 plus t squared is equal to sec of theta. That's the first part. Now let's look at the second part. Again, second part can be simplified. We have it's t into 1 plus t squared. So again, just do your substitution and follow the changes using the identities. So this becomes tan of theta into 1 plus t squared, which is tan squared of theta. So 1 plus tan squared of theta, we already know that it is equivalent to sec squared, and so this proceeds as tan theta into sec squared of theta. Now the question is, what is sec squared? As you have seen in the previous videos, sec of theta is the same as 1 over cos of theta, and so which means that our tan of theta into the sec squared of theta can be written as tan of theta times sec squared, which is the 1 over cos squared of theta. We could technically leave it just here, but we realize that we can maybe do more by simplifying. Let's see what we have. So tan theta is sine theta over cos of theta, then times 1 over cos squared of theta, and so which means we have sine theta everything over cos power 3 theta, and so this can be finally left here as sine theta times sec cubed theta. So we can keep it here or just leave it here, but it's better here because we have then combined all the cos functions together to form the sec cubed. Now let's look at part C of number 3. Part C of number 3 says t over square root of 1 plus t squared. Begin by substituting in and see where it takes you. So this is tan theta, then square root of 1 plus tan squared theta, which we already know from here. And so just continue doing the substitution. This is tan theta over everything square root of inside part, which is the sec squared theta, and this goes to tan of theta everything over sec of theta. So when we get here, just try to do the substitution, and so tan alone is sine of theta, then over cos of theta times 1 over sec theta. But recall sec theta is the same as 1 over cos or theta. So which means that we can continue making some further substitutions here, which is sine theta over cos of theta times 1 over sec. This gives us cos of theta, because sec is 1 over cos, so cos is 1 over sec. So this is replaced by cos, and so we can see that this is going to cancel with that, thereby leaving us with only sine theta. So which means that this expression can be simplified to sine of theta, as simple as that. Now let's look at question 4. Question 4, part A. Part A says that if C is cosec of theta, then we are going to simplify square root of c squared minus 1. Again, the strategy is just substituting what is given to you. Proceed by keeping up with the known identities, and so this is going to give us square root of cosec squared theta, then take off 1. So the question is now, what identity relates cosec? And again, my reference is the first identity plus cosine squared or theta being equal to 1. And then cosec, we know it's 1 over sine, so just divide throughout by sine squared, so that gives us 1 plus cos squared over sine squared, that will give us the cot squared of theta being equal to 1 over sine squared, which is the cosec squared of theta. Okay, so now you can see that we can take 1 the other side, and that means we have cot squared theta being equal to cosec squared theta minus 1. So if you already know this, you don't need to derive it again. You can just make a use of this identity, drop it there, and then begin your substitution. So thereby it means our cosec squared of theta minus 1 is the same as square root of cot squared of theta, and so this further reduces to just cot of theta, because the square goes with the square root. Let's look at part B of question 4, which says that this is square root of c squared minus 1 over c. Then simplify that, and in this case I'm just going to refer to this, just borrow this, the answer for this, plug it here, and the final answer for this upper part, which you have in part B, is just cot. So I'm just going to say this is cot of theta, but in reality, when you're solving up this question, you have to work through this again, like we have done here, and then you end up compressing it to cot, and then continue. So this is over cosec of theta. So let's try to express this in terms of the functions we already know. Cot is the same as cos over sine of theta, then times 1 over cosec theta. So, but what is cosec? We know that cosec of theta is the same as 1 over sine of theta. Yeah, so then if this is true, then we can just go back and substitute here, and so that means we have cos of theta over sine of theta multiplied by cosec is just the reciprocal. 1 over cosec is now the reciprocal of that, so which means that 1 over cosec is the same as 1 over cosec is the same as sine. So that means this is multiplied by sine of theta, and so this and that will go, and then we end up getting cos of theta, and so we can therefore say square root of c squared minus 1 over c is the same as cos of theta. Okay, so if you want it just back in the original variable like c, but in this case we only need to simplify this in terms of the trigonometric function. So part C, of question number 4 is you have c over c squared minus 1. So how do you go about that? Just do the same thing, substituting, plug in the equivalence of c, which is the cosec theta, and then in this case again we have this is cosec squared of theta, supposed to be minus 1, and then take it from there. So all we see is that first keep the numerator constant, and then modify the denominator. From here we have already seen that it is equivalent to cot squared, so that means I'm having this as cot squared of theta. Now we can modify and recall that cosec theta is the same as 1 over sine theta, but again cot itself in terms of tan is 1 over tan, but tan is sine theta over cosine theta. So when we are talking about cot, then this would be the same as cos over sine of theta. So let's try to break down this into these small functions. And so this means that we have our cosec, which is 1 over now sine theta, times 1 over cot squared of theta. So where does this take us? This takes us to 1 over sine of theta multiplied by 1 over cot squared. 1 over cot is the tan, so that means we have tan squared, but tan alone is sine over cos, so which means this is sine squared theta over cos squared of theta. And so you can realize that one sine is going to go with one sine there, and then we come up with sine theta over cos squared of theta, which can be further written as sine of theta times sec squared of theta, because 1 over cos squared is the sec squared theta. And so we can therefore have that, therefore c over c minus 1 is the sine theta sec squared of theta in the most simplified